Was smoking all my dragons, divine righteous, almighty greats, overachieving, never slacking. Welcome back to the channel. Today we have another video. This is called The View on America after living abroad in the UK. Yeah, we're going to hop right into this. The original link will be in the description. This is from Mac Chernov. And here we go.
It was a huge culture shock for me. And I was like,
Mm.
there is a whole world out there, and America's maybe not the greatest country in the world.
This is Syby. She's from America but has lived in Sweden and the UK for 7 years. We discussed what's wrong with American tourists abroad, why deadlines in Britain are often perceived as flexible, and how long it takes for an American to start understanding British English. I'm Max, let's go.
When I moved outside of the US for the first time, when I moved to Sweden back then, it has like different pros and cons, but I was kind of brainwashed as a child, like in, your school, like America's the greatest country. But then when I was exposed to all these, different types of cultures and meeting different type of people, I realized, oh, there's a whole world out there. And I really enjoyed my life living in Europe at the time, and I was able to travel so easily. After that ended, I moved back to the States, and I just realized I just don't feel like I belong here anymore because I was exposed to the outside world. So I'm like, I need to get out of here.
You mentioned that like growing up you were taught that US is the greatest country in the world, then you moved to Sweden, to Europe. What was the biggest revelation, or what was the biggest shock that, oh, it's not like that, it's not what I thought?
Well, the biggest revelation when I first moved to Sweden is how people were less superficial. I'm from the US, but like I grew up in LA. So LA is, Hollywood. Everybody cares about the celebrities and what they look like, that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
that world. I mean, I gotta say, I don't represent the whole of America. I just know what I know. In the West Coast, and especially LA and San Francisco, from that kind of flashy kind of atmosphere that I grew up in, and then go to Sweden where people are a little bit more relaxed about like the way they look. Nobody has to look perfect. Nobody has to get plastic surgery all the time, or, that kind of very laid backness. And then people were actually, I guess,
When I do look around, it seems like plastic surgery it's everywhere.
being in the industry that I was in, everyone was talking about the like latest new technology, the most expensive holiday, and like the Michelin star restaurant. And then when I went to Stockholm, people were just completely happy going mushroom picking. That kind of, rustic environment. And that was the first time I realized being in the nature is actually
She said they was just happy mushroom picking. That's amazing.
kind of better than, purchasing that, hottest new designer bag. You know what I mean? People really valued family quality time. Whereas in the US, when I was working in marketing, it's like, I gotta admit, in my early to mid 20s, I was a bad friend because I was never there for them because work got in the way. I promised them that I was going to be at their birthday party. However, I wasn't able to make it because just the last minute work came along. And that was like the biggest thing that that's the most important thing in my life. I had to get it done. But when
You could tell she did a lot of self-reflection, which, that equals a lot of growth.
I moved to Sweden, I realized that people were very punctual and they really cared about keeping their promises when they tell them that they're going to be there for their friend. Everyone around them respected that, like their work colleagues respected that.
How do you think Europeans see Americans? Let's say specifically British, how do they see Americans? Do they have any prejudices when they find out you're from the US? What's the reputation you think of Americans?
We're loud. I kind of noticed how patriotic Americans are compared to maybe the rest of the world was when I was watching the Olympics. It's just Americans are always the loudest, even when it's being broadcasted and I watch it and then everyone's like, USA, USA. And then I don't hear other countries being that loud, So that's when I was, oh, sorry, we're really loud, poorly dressed. We're a bit obnoxious, kind of demanding, I guess, because American people are used to like customer service, really good customer service. That's one thing also shocked me when I moved to Sweden as well. There's no sense of customer service because everyone's just individual and you just rely on yourself. That's very independent culture. Whereas in America, you just want to be cared for because usually you need a tip at the end. So that's what they expect people outside of the country. And that they're just getting normal service in that country, but they're like, oh my God, the service here is so horrible. Like, did you see that? Like, it was so rude. Like, that kind of mentality that I can see how Americans come up as a little bit annoying and obnoxious. Typical American tourists, when they come out of the country for the first time, they think they own the world, maybe.
It's crazy that she's saying this because yesterday when I was coming out of a restaurant, I held the door for someone and he didn't like he did not say one word, and he was with what seemed to be his wife. She didn't say one word or look at me, and I had to hold back. I really had to hold back, and because I felt like I'm at a point in my life where I felt like it was a test, for me to learn to just let things go, but it's just the entitlement and the rudeness of just not even acknowledging another human being. It really did make me feel some type of way. So you will deal with that a lot.
Because of the patriotic belief system that is so instilled in us when you're growing up in school.
For me, the most important thing in life, it's not business, it's not even this YouTube channel. It's the happiness of myself, my family and my friends. And my current job allows me to focus on the things that really matters in life for me. This is my full-time project and I know this game. And I show you all of my secrets and strategies on a 3-day online workshop, YouTube Fast Track to Views and Passive Income. You will learn how to overplay the YouTube algorithm, how to gain thousands and thousands of views even on a small channel, all the ways of making money on YouTube, including generating a passive income on this platform. So I packaged everything in a 3-day event, which was before paid, but now it's free for everyone. So you don't want to miss it. Book your seat following the link in the
If he living like that, I might have to take his class.
description, and I'll see you on this 3-day event. If you ever thought of starting a YouTube channel, this is your best first step. What about the language? So do you have any difficulties, or like was it weird for you how people use words for you as an American?
Yes. Oh my God. Communication was really hard for me, I gotta say, because we speak the same language, but the accent was so different. So I'm sure it's kind of amusing to think that I had better time communicating with Swedish people who spoke English than British people who spoke English, because when I first came here, I knew that they were speaking English, but I was not used to it, so I had no idea what they were saying. I felt like it was completely a foreign language. First, 2 years, I think I absolutely needed subtitles to watch TV. And also, there are so many different accents here, even in the city of London. People have different accents, so I just couldn't figure it out. I was a little bit afraid to speak or to engage in any kind of deep conversation with British people when I first started, because it sounded like a foreign language. But now, over time, I'm used to it. I don't have any fears of talking to my clients about what grooming requirements they have, having consultations. I have no problem communicating with them nowadays, but first 2 years, definitely, it was a huge adjustment. Scottish accent, I still cannot understand it. Sorry. But the funny thing is, some of my American friends tell me that I have kind of adopted some of British, I don't think accents, but the words that I use. They find that very funny when I say she, when I describe a dog, oh, he's so cheeky, and Americans will never say that word. Oh, bless her. I thought I would never, use that kind of expression. Americans will say, take the trash out, whereas here, take the bin out, But now I use the bin instead of the trash. So my Americans make fun of me for that I've turned British.
Why do you think people are friendlier? And maybe, okay, that's the first one. And the second one, what do you think the biggest difference in mentality if you compare Americans? Like, let's say I'm generalizing, but typical Americans versus typical British.
Americans are very friendly and approachable from the outside. You can just talk to a stranger. You can just start a conversation with anyone, and people will.
That definitely depends on where you are. It's a lot of people who are very entitled. You know, like I stated earlier, it really depends on what town, what city, what specific area within that city. That depends. But for the most part, I deal with a lot of rudeness. I deal with a lot. It's a lot of. It's like 50-50. 50-50 for me.
Generally be friendly to you. Although I think British people are a little bit more American in the sense that they might think that you're really weird, but they could still talk to you, maybe if you catch the right person. But I remember when I was in Sweden, people were more reserved there. So if you try to start a conversation with random stranger, they're like, what the hell are you doing?
Okay, I can imagine that.
Like, I don't, you don't interrupt me, don't disturb my peace. They will be more shy or, again, like reserved about talking to just random people, I guess. So in that sense, I guess Americans can come off as like more friendly outside, but that doesn't mean that they're always gonna be there for you. For example, like if you're a foreigner coming to the US and then you struck a conversation with some American and they feel like they're completely like your new friend, and then they might be like, we should totally hang out, but then when? And it never happened. Whereas whereas if you said that to a Swede in Sweden, they will show up, they will they will be there for your, I don't know, they'll make sure that you actually do hang out at some point. I think it's more similar here in the UK. I think people will, if they set up a date, they will try to show up, I guess, more in that sense, unlike Americans. But
So their word is pretty much gold, and they're more responsible. I get it, definitely. I
don't
get it.
know. I don't want to sound like Americans are horrible. No, they're not. It's just that we're overly friendly when we don't mean it sometimes.
Being Asian.
See, I'm from the Northeast. She's from Cali. So there's a big difference there, too. Where I'm from, it's known to be a lot more rude. Definitely.
Where you feel more comfortable, in the US or in Britain?
I was very lucky that I didn't feel awkward being an Asian person living in the States. I would say I don't feel uncomfortable being an Asian person in this country, or at least this city, because this city is so international. But I think when I moved to Stockholm, there was a little bit of a culture shock. That was like 2012 or something. So that was already like, more than 10 years ago, right? And it was still, I would say Sweden was still more homogenous than, say, London. When they saw me, like a single Asian woman, just walking down the street, I didn't look like a tourist. So they kind of questioned, like, I felt a little bit uncomfortable, I would say. I did experience like some drunken kids on their, public transport telling me to go back to my country.
Do you miss anything from your life in the US?
There are certain things that I do miss about America is when I was opening this business, how hard it is to get things done in this country, for example. When you have like a plan to build a store, for example, with your contractors, your construction workers or whatnot, like the companies that you work with, they will have a set timeline and the deadlines, and they will try to meet those dates no matter what, because in America, if things go wrong, people will sue you, or at least threaten to sue you, and it is possible. So people generally do get things done on time because they don't want any repercussions if they don't meet their deadlines. Whereas in this country, the laws are a bit different, so it takes a lot of patience. So there are certain things. I opened this shop in June, and I'm supposed to have a daycare portion of the business in like basement unit. However, my landlord has to fix certain things, which she still hasn't. So it's been almost like more than 10 months because she was supposed to fix this place even before I opened this salon in June. So these things I take for legal advice, but there's no way around it. As long as like she's willing to fix it for me, it's just taking a long time because people don't show up, people don't meet the deadlines, or they just don't have deadlines. They don't want to give you the deadlines. It's kind of like a complacent sense of getting your work done that exists in this country a little bit is really challenging for me and for I think a lot of other people, but people just put up with it. The mentality is keep calm and carry on.
In terms of safety, where do you feel more safe? Like, because LA and San Francisco area like has this reputation of, you know, having a lot of crime, but London as well, like stabbing and stuff, it's also exists there. Like what do you think about this one?
One good thing about this country or any other European country that I know of is that you're not allowed to have guns. Like civilians are not allowed to have guns. So I really appreciate that. That's one thing I really dislike about America is that we still have this gun violence issue. When I moved here, I feel like it's slightly, I guess, safer, so to speak, than San Francisco, because unfortunately, when I went back there, I would see kind of sad situations where it was almost like a third world country in a way that I would see used up needles or like human feces everywhere because, you know, the government wasn't really taking care of people who are out on the street, who are mentally ill, who is not able to look after themselves, and the number of these people increase. I don't know, as the city gets richer and richer, they're pushing out like normal people and people lose their homes and they're on the street. So it was a really kind of sad, and I guess that was a bit, I guess if I think about it, maybe unsafe because, you know, used up needles at the street and you're walking your dog and you don't want your dog to step on it. So I guess in that sense, it was unsafe. When I moved here, I didn't see any of that. So I was like, oh, it's better than San Francisco. But then I also hear about like people stabbing kids, usually younger people doing that. Yeah, it would be unsafe. I don't really feel that threatened for my life, to be honest with you. Around my shop, this neighborhood, it's central London. I'm located on 112 Cleveland Street in Fitzrovia. You can just come by our shop. We're very interested in making this business as sustainable and eco-friendly as possible. So, you know, sometimes there's just so many people, and around the holiday seasons, I know that there's like theft going on, like Amazon parcels getting stolen very easily. It happens here. But other than that, I think I feel pretty okay. I was overworking. In America, the working culture was just so horrible. Compared to Asia, maybe it's not as bad from what I hear. But after living in Sweden and seeing how great of like life and work balance there was, and then seeing how I'm slaving away for these like multi-billion-dollar companies, just making that more money, and I was working 18 hours a day and just not. My life is not being compensated enough for the amount of work that I was putting into. I was working 18 hours a day and it was not a healthy environment for me. I fell into depression. I just kind of had a nervous breakdown towards the end of my corporate career in marketing in America. I just could not stay in the US any longer either because I just felt like all of my peers, they were going through the same thing, but they were just stuck because that's what they know. But then my dog, I had a Maltese. She actually recently passed away, like in last November. She was nearly 17 years, and she traveled the world with me. She's the biggest love of my life. But I used to brush her hair all the time, and she was always in good shape. And people were complimenting on the way she looked. So I thought maybe I can give it a try, dog grooming. And I found school in London with dog grooming. So I decided to enroll and start this journey. Here I am. I have my own salon as of last June, and the client base is growing, and I'm happy. Yep.
Oh, you are so sweet. Thanks for watching the next video. Yeah, right here, this one. Thank you again, and see you there.
So,
My.
one thing she said, about the crime, I know where I'm from, like, one thing about out here, you always have to watch out for guns for sure. Somebody always got a gun. A lot of people carrying illegal guns, and a lot of people influenced by the wrong things. A lot of shootings. So you definitely got to be careful, especially depending on where you are. Always got to keep that in your mind. It ain't always just going to be like a physical, hey, go your way, or physical altercate. Like, a lot of people carry guns and like to use them. Um, Another thing she said was with the homeless. Being in New York, you're gonna see homeless everywhere. Or being from New York, I had a homeless guy who lived in front of me when I lived in New York City. Like, lived in front of my house at the time. So you definitely get, if you're not used to seeing homeless, yeah, depending on where you go, like if you go into major cities, definitely get used to seeing that. But overall, I definitely my favorite part is still where she said they were mushroom picking. I thought that was pretty cool, and just you could tell she learned a lot about life. Just nature wise, and really you could tell she connected to earth a lot more when she went abroad, and you could just see it on her. You could see the growth, and when I say that, just by how she's speaking, about how she said she was and how she is now. And that was an amazing video. So that was the view on America after living abroad in the UK. Original link will be in the description, and let me know what you guys think in the comments. Much love.